Welcome everybody. It's lovely to have a good crowd for today's talk. If this is your first time in the IIA, welcome. If you're a normal offender coming in for more intellectual thought, lovely to always have you again. I won't be long up here. If there's a fire drill, we shouldn't be expecting one. Please go down the stairs and out the door where you're coming across the HSC building. We'll collect your names and make sure everybody's safe and going around. Today, I'm very pleased to say that we have Minister Muir as well as Tom chairing, and I think it's going to be a very good intellectually stimulating discussion of what's going on around. The Minister will give a short address and then we'll dive into the discussions. Tom will ask a couple of questions and then we'll be opening up to the floor for your inputs. And so I hope you have plenty of questions ready to go. Thank you so much again for coming and attending.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's a great pleasure that you're here. I just again have some housekeeping. People will be able to join the discussion using the Q&A function of Zoom. Please feel free to send your questions through if they occur to you, and when Minister has finished his presentation. And a reminder that today's presentation and Q&A are both on the record. And if you want to join the discussion on Twitter, use the handle @IIEA. Just to formally introduce Minister Muir. He's Minister for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs in Northern Ireland and an Alliance Party MLA for North Down. He previously served as Alliance Party Chief Whip, Finance and Infrastructure Spokesperson, and leading party efforts for restoration and reform of the Assembly and the Executive. Prior to joining the Northern Ireland Assembly, Andrew served for nearly a decade as councillor, including a term as Mayor of North Down 2013-2014. Before becoming an MLA, he worked for Northern Ireland's public transport provider Translink as a senior project manager, overseeing rollout of multi-million-pound future ticketing system. He graduated with a degree in Peace and Conflict Studies at Ulster University in 1999. And now the important bit. He's a keen runner and has completed 11 marathons with a personal best of 3 hours, 7 minutes. I don't know whether the present responsibility will give you much time to improve on that personal best, but in any event, you're most welcome and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. And that personal best was done here in Dublin, and I've done Dublin Marathon 5 times. So it's great to be in the great city of Dublin and also to be here at the Institute of European and International Affairs. And I really appreciate the work that you do and their priority around the environment is hopefully reflected in the invitation to myself. In my role as Minister of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, it hasn't taken long for me to recognise that we're at a pivotal time for the environment, both locally and also globally. In the policy context, we're living in a rapidly evolving environmental landscape. We can't ignore the challenges that are ahead in terms of climate mitigation and adaptation, also in terms of sustainable agriculture, reversing biodiversity loss, improving air and water quality, and also in terms of managing waste. I am deeply committed to doing all I can to meet both European and international environmental targets on these challenges, such as the Paris Agreement, the Glasgow Climate Pact, and also the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework on their 30 by 30 targets. Much of our environmental legislation is derived from European law and is supported by a wide breadth of environmental policies and strategies. I'm keen to uphold the underpinning principles of these strategies and strengthen and improve our environmental policies where I can. To achieve this, we all collectively have a duty to strengthen our commitment and get our environmental policies right as we go forward. Environmental issues do not respect boundaries, and that is why I'm committed to North-South and also East-West cooperation. I recognise how vital it is to cooperate via the North-South Ministerial Council, and I'm pleased that environmental matters feature regularly on the agenda for these council meetings. North and South, we face similar environmental challenges, and we must tackle those together so that we can learn from each other and make decisions that benefit the entire island of Ireland. I am grateful for the ongoing engagement that takes place between officials on some of the most challenging environmental issues of our today. And similarly, I'm proud to engage with the British-Irish Council, and I attended a summit meeting hosted by the Scottish Government in December of last year. The Council promotes positive, practical relationships amongst its 8 member administrations in areas such as climate adaptation, the marine environment, marine litter, as well as non-native species and the Asian Hornet Task Force. Practical collaboration and the sharing of expertise in these areas is invaluable for the protection of our shared environment, especially now in terms of Northern Ireland's unique position between GB and Europe, and also the work to implement the Windsor Framework. In light of the UK Government and the EU entering negotiations on an SPS veterinary agreement and the wider reset of EU relations, I would strongly support a comprehensive and ambitious SPS agreement without delay, plus linkage between ETS, CBAM, EUDR, and much more. I strongly believe that wider UK-EU alignment on regulations is important so we can sweep away the unnecessary barriers created by the previous pursuit of a hard Brexit. Turning to agriculture, for me as Minister of Agriculture and Environment and Rural Affairs, it is important that farming and food production is truly sustainable. This is a key issue for Northern Ireland, as approximately 75% of our land in Northern Ireland is in agriculture, and farmers have a vital role to play in producing food sustainably. The impact of climate change is particularly acute for agriculture, and we have all witnessed severe weather patterns already this year and some of our towns, villages, communities and businesses have been severely impacted. Climate change modelling predicts a greater chance of hotter, drier summers and warmer, wetter winters, and more extreme weather and rising sea levels. To address these multiple climate, biodiversity and ecological crises head-on, it is imperative that there is coherence across environmental and agricultural policy development. And that's why I'm delighted that this is the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. This is necessary for getting the balance right between food production, our economy and environmental protection. To this end, my department continues to roll out the programme of farm support via the new Sustainable Agricultural Programme. Leaving the EU has its challenges, and one of which is setting up our new policies, but we're getting on with the job. A key environmental element of the Sustainable Agriculture Programme, I will refer to it this afternoon as SAP, another acronym in my department, will be the Farming with Nature package. The Farming with Nature package aims to contribute to the delivery of many of my department's strategic environmental outcomes by supporting farmers and land managers to make substantial contributions to environmental improvements and also sustainability. It is a plan that schemes will be introduced with the aim of increasing the extent, quality and connectivity of habitats in the farmland within and outside of designated sites and priority habitat areas. I'm pleased my officials, and I'm very grateful to them, are already working closely with both the environmental and farming sectors to design this package and ensure that farmers receive appropriate levels of payment for the environmental benefits they deliver. I am pleased to announce that the Farming with Nature package will open for applications this year. It will be introduced in a phased approach, beginning initially with the Farming with Nature Transition Scheme. The scheme will include a number of measures, including the planting of new hedgerows and farmland tree planting, as well as multi-species winter cover crops. Furthermore, I plan to launch the Landscapes projects later in the year, which will allow groups of farmers to collaborate and develop innovative approaches to restore nature at a landscape scale in Northern Ireland. On the wider economy, I think it's important to say that previous attitudes of growth at all costs have, without doubt, been detrimental to our environment. We must learn lessons and ensure that mistakes of the past are not repeated. I'm therefore pleased to say that DAERA has been leading on the development of a new green growth strategy on behalf of the Northern Ireland Executive. Green growth is an accepted OECD term, and it's about ensuring a balanced approach being taken towards addressing climate change, protecting the environment and supporting the development of the green economy. The Green Growth Strategy sets out our longer-term vision and framework for a future where Northern Ireland transitions from being a high to a net zero emission society, where we can enjoy the longer-term economic, social, health and environmental benefits that this brings. Work has been ongoing within my department to finalise the strategy, and it has now been shared with my executive colleagues for comment. I hope to get approval very soon. Last year, the Northern Ireland Executive also gave approval for Northern Ireland's Environmental Improvement Plan. The other acronym from that is EIP, which sets out clear targets to significantly improve the natural environment. The Environmental Improvement Plan is included within the Executive's new programme for government, and I welcome agreement on that. The Environmental Improvement Plan was published and laid before the Assembly on the 27th of September last year. It is a statutory requirement, and the requirement was for it to be agreed in July 2023, but without an executive, we weren't able to progress that, but it's now in place, and it sets out DAERA and other departments' intention to take actions to significantly improve our natural environment. It also provides statutory requirements for annual reporting by my department and also separately by the Independent Office for Environmental Protection, or another acronym, the OEP. The EIP forms the basis of a coherent and effective set of interventions built around 6 strategic environmental objectives, which will help guide our actions so that we can deliver real improvements in the quality of the environment for many decades to come. It will also improve the health and well-being of all those who live and work in Northern Ireland, while also creating opportunities to develop our economy. I believe the EIP forms the basis for the changes we urgently need to make. It is essential that the EIP delivers against ambitious objectives that work alongside other policies, including the Green Growth Strategy, which I talked about earlier. The EIP is based upon the Environment Act of 2021, which requires us to significantly improve the environment, and I'm committed to doing that. Turning to the topical issue of water quality, which is reflected within the EIP. You will no doubt be aware of the very concerning incidents of blue-green algae in Lough Neagh and other waterways, both in 2023 and again last year. Lough Neagh is the largest lake in these islands and provides much of our drinking water in Northern Ireland. It is the heart of the communities that sit on its shores, a lifeline for the people who rely on it for their livelihoods, and the home to many native species. Lough Neagh is a national treasure, and we should have treated it as such. Instead, it has become a sad and stark example of the impact of climate change and what happens when we don't get the balance right between growing our economy and looking after our environment. Regrettably, we will almost certainly see blue-green algae blooms again this year and potentially for many years to come. While source apportionment figures may change, recent research undertaken about Lough Neagh as part of the Harmonica project paints a worrying picture that phosphorus lost to Lough Neagh is about 60% from agriculture and about 32% from wastewater, septic tanks and industry. Other research also raises concern about the impact of nutrients in the sediment and the timescale for lake recovery of about 40 years once the nutrient pollution stops. Addressing and improving water quality in Lough Neagh is therefore a personal priority, it's a departmental priority and an executive priority. The publication of the Lough Neagh Report and Action Plan in July of last year has been a significant step forward in helping us to begin to correct the problems which have been built up. The actions of the Lough Neagh Action Plan focus on 4 approaches underpinned by science. And as I was talking earlier over lunch, science and evidence is critical. It may take you to difficult places requiring tough decisions, but if we are to restore trust and confidence in politics, then it's important we put facts and peer-reviewed research at the heart of policy and decision making. The 4 pillars of the Lough Neagh Plan are education, incentivication, regulation and enforcement. There is substantial work ahead for us to address this complex issue, and this requires collective action, not just across government, but across private and public sectors and the wider community. On this point, I was pleased to be able to chair the first quarterly Lough Neagh Stakeholder Forum. That was on the 12th of December of last year, and the next one is organised later this month. This forum will play a crucial role in progressing our next steps by enabling diverse and valuable input and a communication pathway as we implement the action plan. Whilst the problems of blue-green algae in Lough Neagh brought a sharp focus to mainly one water body and one catchment area, there is much we can share regarding learning, expertise and research, and I believe we will work together, north-south, east-west, to improve water quality for everyone. I really genuinely welcome the recent Irish Government's Programme for Government's commitment to develop an all-island plan to improve water basin management, water quality and nature restoration, and I look forward to working with my new ministerial counterparts on delivering upon this. As I mentioned, Lough Neagh is not the only water body that requires attention or intervention in relation to environmental protection. In response to emerging information on water quality, including reports from the Office of Environmental Protection, the Northern Ireland Audit Office, and also the Loughnane Report, I have approved the third cycle river basin management, and this is now subject to executive approval. And once that's obtained, I will publish it. This plan takes an integrated approach to the protection, improvement, and sustainable use of water environment, and will contain a programme of measures setting out the actions required to protect and improve all water bodies, rivers, lakes, marine, coastal and transitional, and also groundwater. My department also has a statutory obligation to carry out sensitive area reviews under the Urban Wastewater Treatment Regulations 2007, and I'm acutely aware of the need to progress this important area as a matter of urgency. This includes the publication of the 2019 and 2023 sensitive area reviews and, subject to executive approval, designation of Inner Belfast Lough Shellfish Waters Protected Area as a sensitive area, and it is my intention this work is completed by the end of this month. As people who are listening to my speech will note, a number of the dates that I'm quoting to you are in the past. This is a reflection of the need to reform our institutions and ensure the institutions are not subject to stop-go government, and we have continuous government delivering for people in Northern Ireland. Focusing on another issue, which is about climate change. This is a huge challenge facing us all, and my department has a key role in taking forward the development of the first climate action plan in Northern Ireland. My department has lead responsibility for climate change, and just because it is in the title of the department does not mean that I am not committed to it. On the contrary, this is my top priority. There is a collective need to address the climate emergency that was declared in 2020 by the Northern Ireland Assembly. Indeed, that was my maiden speech in the Assembly. And to take forward the commitment for Northern Ireland to play its part in tackling climate change, and this is really, really key. In recognising the need for urgent action to reduce carbon emissions and also to adjust to changing weather patterns and restore our natural environment, we can begin and we must begin to set Northern Ireland on a more sustainable and resilient path, contributing to the goals of the Paris Agreement, the Glasgow Climate Pact, and as I referenced earlier, the Montreal Global Diversity Framework 30 by 30 targets. By stepping up as global citizens to address these significant challenges, we will also be supporting the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals, which are a core part of the Environmental Improvement Plan. These recognise the need to balance social, economic and environmental sustainability. This action is not optional. In 2022, the Northern Ireland Assembly passed its first climate change legislation. I am very proud of this legislation, and the Just Transition runs right through it. This commits Northern Ireland to an ambitious 2050 net zero emissions target through a series of interim targets. We are committed to 5 yearly carbon budgets that will chart our progress to net zero, and these must be set in legislation. We must also develop and implement 5 yearly climate action plans, which will document the policies and actions needed to get us on the road to net zero and meet those budgets. As a result, a significant amount of work, and I want to again thank officials for the work that they're doing, that has been taking place across the Northern Ireland Civil Service, also in conjunction with the UK government in relation to this, to finalise Northern Ireland's first climate action plan. The first climate action plan will set out Northern Ireland's approach to meeting the carbon budget for 2023 to 2027 and also establish a pathway towards interim targets for 2030 and 2040 and an overall net zero by 2050 target. Achieving this is hugely challenging and requires significant transformation of the public services we deliver and how we do business and how we go about our daily lives. Changing our behaviours individually and collectively will be a key part of delivering the necessary carbon reductions. It will also require our approach to public and private sector expenditure, which takes into account of carbon impacts, alongside the true social and environmental value of our initiatives, and will impact across all sectors of Northern Ireland society and economy. Rising to the challenge of climate change, I am engaging with other ministers to expedite the climate action plan development and determined that a credible draft climate action plan is approved by the Northern Ireland Executive and then published for consultation as soon as possible. Further work that my department has undertaken on the issue of climate change is the development of the third Northern Ireland Climate Change Adaptation Programme, which is at an advanced stage. This work was undertaken in response to climate risks identified in the latest UK climate change risk assessment, such as severe weather events, which cut across multiple sectors and require partnership working to address. Of course, we cannot ignore the interdependence of climate change and biodiversity. Nature is under constant threat across the globe, adversely affected by many pressures being placed upon it. 14 of the 18 essential services nature provides to sustain human life have declined, including water and air quality and the regulation of our climate. It is no wonder that there is a steady decline in the number, range and diversity of many of our vulnerable species and habitats, both locally and internationally. The United Nations has recognised the challenges facing the natural environment. They have come up with a series of global targets, which, if adopted and implemented across the planet, will go some way in halting the loss of nature. Indeed, they may even assist in meaningful restoration in some instances. The UK Government, I know, wishes to play an active part in this process, and I'm keen that Northern Ireland is involved as much as possible. To this end, my department has been developing a new biodiversity strategy known as the Nature Recovery Strategy. The Nature Recovery Strategy is intended to identify key actions and objectives required to meet local and national commitments under the UN's Convention on Biological Diversity Global Diversity Framework. Many of these commitments focus on environmental sustainability and ensuring climate change and action for nature are considered in tandem. As such, the development of the strategy has involved many key stakeholders across sectors, including farming, local government, NGOs, and of course my department and other departments. It contains several new proposed policies aimed to address many challenges affecting the natural environment. It is closely aligned with other departmental initiatives such as agri-environment policy and climate change. The Nature Recovery Strategy, like all major cross-cutting departmental initiatives, requires agreement across the executive, and it's hoped the draft strategy should be ready for consultation later this year. There is much to do over the lifespan of the strategy to put Northern Ireland's natural environment in a better place than it is today. It is a challenge for all sectors and for society in general, and in short, is a challenge for every individual. To be successful, its actions will require commitment and possibly a change of approach going forward. For example, embedded within the requirements of the Climate Change Act, it will be important that nature-based solutions are an integral part of policy and decision-making going forward. Without a doubt, the success of these key strategies will require adequate finance and funding to deliver for nature restoration. Therefore, we need to assess the funds and sources of funding that are available to the greatest benefits for nature. One area we can have an impact on addressing biodiversity loss and building resilience to climate change locally is through initiatives such as the Shared Island Fund. One good example of this cooperation is the Irish Government's Shared Island Fund Peatland programme, which is funded by Shared Island Initiative and involves partnership between Northern Ireland Environment Agency and the National Parks and Wildlife Service. It involves the development of sites across Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland in order to deliver practical peatland restoration. These sites will build on the capacity for long-term peatland management. This is an important programme as the restoration of peatland is a key nature-based solution across Ireland and the UK, and will be both has opportunities to mitigate and provide resilience to climate change as well as restoring biodiversity. Similarly, the Shared Island Biosecurity and Invasive Species Initiative aims to help preserve our shared islands' unique ecosystems and protect our economy from the growing threat of invasive species. So far, I've focused on land management and how this can help achieve many of our environmental policy goals. However, in wider society, we also have a duty to manage our resources sustainably. Reducing the amount of waste we generate and the volume we send to landfill will help transition us to a low-carbon circular economy. My department is currently taking forward a wide range of interventions, including financial support, policy and legislation, which will drive this forward. Working closely with colleagues in the Department for Economy on a draft circular economy strategy, which aims to design out waste, keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible, and regenerate natural systems, and it is currently being finalised. On the issue of the deposit return scheme due to come into play in Northern Ireland in October 2027, I especially welcome the good collaboration across Ireland in sharing information, particularly our learning from the successful launch of the Irish deposit return scheme, of which I'm very jealous. I am pleased to say that we have received almost 300 responses to the consultation document I launched last year, which is rethinking our resources, measures for climate action and a circular economy in Northern Ireland. I will be taking action soon on this with a view to meeting the targets of 65% for municipal recycling rate, as well as a target of 70% waste to be recycled by 2030, which is in the Climate Change Act. I've already mentioned a range of interventions my department is taking to drive forward transition to a circular economy, including financial support. My department has made financial assistance available to local councils by way of the Household Waste Recycling Collaborative Change Programme. This is a £23 million fund which will transform curbside recycling and household waste recycling centres, infrastructures and services. Another key recycling issue my department has progressed is the environmental impact of single-use vapes. Single-use vape waste can have a devastating impact on our environment and biodiversity. I'm glad to say that Northern Ireland, as well alongside other UK devolved governments, has now laid legislation banning the sale and supply of single-use vapes, with this coming into force across the UK on the 1st of June of this year. This ensures alignment across the UK, and I would urge the Irish government to advance their ban also. I'm committed also to taking action and to restrict the consumption of a range of single-use plastics. Therefore, my officials are working to bring forward a ban on the supply and sale of wet wipes containing plastic. Banning wet wipes containing plastic will reduce plastic and microplastic pollution, particularly in our waters, so that we can, and I welcome the Irish government's progress in this area. I am committed to developing a new waste management strategy for Northern Ireland, which I hope to have ready for consultation this year. This new strategy will set policy direction for the future management of waste over the next 6 years. The goal of the strategy is to future-proof waste management in Northern Ireland, whilst also embedding a circular economy. My vision for Northern Ireland is a strong green economy which values its resources and actively closes its loop by putting as many of those resources back into the system as possible. Alongside this, I believe that collaboration and shared learning across the island of Ireland, UK and Europe, Northern Ireland can continue on its way to achieving a thriving, sustainable and resilient agri-food sector, a healthy, nature-rich environment, and be a leader on climate change. Thank you.